They want attacking purposeful football all the time. Now we've got our backs against the wall and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. You've got to show me all the guts and all the determination you've got in your body. You've got to inspire me.
A marvellous kick. That's as good as you'll ever see. And Footscray are back in front.
I don't know about you guys, but if I see one bloke walking out of here, give the pat on the back from people out there for a good effort, I'll spew up.
From inside the centre square, Boyd kicked the goal. Boyd kicked the goal from inside the centre.
Hey, Pack, welcome to Danny Boyd. It's a podcast about the 2027 Premiership favourites, the Footscray Football Club, Proprietary Limited. They trade at Western Bulldogs. Things are grim. This is going to be an episode. I'll tell you what, if you're listening with your kids, I reckon there might be some fruity language in this one. We try and keep it G-rated. But sometimes when a week is that fucked, you just got to speak properly. Apologies for that, everyone. But, so we've also assembled, we had to bring in an emergency, all three of us, for this one. I'm Danny McGinlay. Mark Stevens is with me and Tom Boyd.
Welcome. Good to be here at Rancho Stevo. I've got Boydie here, and he features in my hallway, actually.
He does.
I've worked out I should have been a journalist, I think, based on Rancho Stevo and how beautiful it is.
Well, good to have you here, mate. It's not quite Middle Park or wherever you are, but we're doing our best. But we've even had a pre-production meeting. There's that much to talk about. But, Tom, well, we've got to start with the category.
Start with the category because, Boydie, you were the only one of us who was there, which is very rare. Like, what made you actually get to a footy game?
It's a good question. A couple of things.
That's Pepsi, the Pugaliers just walked through, Tom. Pepsi plays a bit of a role in the show.
Mate, I thought it was a bird, but apparently it's a dog who takes a little time to go down the staircase.
Yeah. I was down there because my insurance broker, of all people, is a big Geelong man, and we try and catch one game a year, and it was going to be difficult to do Geelong versus the Dogs, and we'd gone in for to Marvel the last
Who has a relationship with their insurance broker?
Insurance brokers tend to have a relationship with me, if that makes sense.
Because you're a broken human.
No, there's things to insure. I was more
right. You talk about journos. I mean, insurance broker. What a wanker, right?
Nah, this one's all right. Nonetheless, so I went with my dad and another Bulldogs supporter who's a really good mate of mine, and also one of my best mates is a Geelong man. So we had a bit of a mix, two of each, and then an agnostic supporter in dad. And look, I wasn't that optimistic going in because we obviously have had a couple of really critical injuries over the past couple of weeks, and I think it's well versed of the fact that we have a glaring hole in the ruck position at the moment. Yeah. And by the way, as a side note, the sting of watching Port Adelaide play and Jordan Sweet run around and actually look all right on the weekend after we gave him away for nothing.
You mentioned insurance brokers. I mean, there's no insurance.
No insurance
So that's the issue. If your house gets burnt down and at the moment it's on fire, there's no one to step in. But Jordan Sweet surely couldn't just hang around and wait for a moment like this.
No, and this is the thing, and I think it's interesting that they changed the rules, and then we start looking more like having two ruckmen playing. And you go, if that happened 2 years earlier, we have him on the list, right? Because there's opportunity to play him half a dozen games a year, a dozen games, or whatever it is, and give him the allure that, like, we're going to keep him. But with the current format that we had previously, it's like Tim plays and no one else does. And so all of our ruckmen get burned in the process.
All the eggs in one basket. As you say, the place is on fire and we're using Emmett to put it out. Not a hose. We're literally just swinging around a 19-year-old child.
Yeah, if I can say, though, at the moment, it feels very much like not only do we not have an insurance in the ruck, but there is like a very clear breakdown of how the game plays out for us based on that fact. So Tim goes down and we get less competitive in the ruck. Then we have some limitations in our midfield with Bont. Didn't look right at all. And you could see, maybe the television footage didn't do it justice. He was limping and agonising all day. All day. Okay. Libba comes in and starts hot, but he's out of the game early. And so at the middle of the ground, we just start getting absolutely smashed in. Yep. And it's never fun to watch Bailey Smith, obviously, who we also got nothing for, run around. And whilst his kicking, in particular early in the game, was pretty ineffective, he really turned the tide from an energy level around the ball. And he's just he just surges the ball forward in an amazing way.
The other thing with English, is that he folds back as well, doesn't he? So he protects the defence.
Well, that's what I was about to say. The third part to this equation is Tim breaks down, our midfields aren't as competitive as usual. And our backs, and I'm not here to shit on our back line in any way, shape or form. But between O'Donnell and Lobb in particular, these guys aren't your scragging one-on-one guys that you can just leave with no support down there. They're not Dale Morris. They're not these guys who can just survive against the onslaught. They need pressure on the ball. They need Tim coming back, and they need slow ball movement so they can use their strength set, which is their height and their marking ability to defend through offense, right? And it was so obvious on the weekend that given the space that they had, Jeremy Cameron was looking at this like, this is the easiest game of footy I've ever played, because these guys cannot match up on me from a speed point of view. And he kicked 5 goals in a row in the exact same way. Snapping over his left shoulder, whether he marked the ball or he picked it up off the ground or was handballed it.
Yep.
Same kick every time.
And then Buku starts to look wobbly because there's good and bad Buku.
Yeah. He looked really wobbly early as well for the whole game, I'd say.
It was really... And were you sitting in like corporate area?
No, I was the 4th highest row in the whole ground.
Right.
I was at the top of the newest stand, basically.
And were Cats fans clocking you? And
Nah, well, I was behind everyone for starters, so that was good. But also, the Nuffy Cats fans particularly were down close to the ground, I'd say.
Okay.
Yeah, and Norton looks sore as well. He's got the glove on. He was sort of didn't look 100% with that hand. I believe he had surgery on it to fix it during the week. So that's not ideal when you're relying on your hands.
Yeah, I think honestly Aaron played quite well, to be honest with you. I think he was actually quite effective in the end, the chances that he got. And he probably dropped 2 opportunities, which would have led to him kicking 5 goals, right? Which is a pretty good day down in the Cattery, especially given that they're playing, a pretty, all-class backline and the ball doesn't get down there more than, 35 times for the game. So I thought he actually looked okay. And obviously the worst tale of the night is that on top of, the injuries to Lobb and Libber and O'Donnell, you've obviously got the ACL with Sam Darcy, which they just said today, Steve-O, that he's not getting surgery on or something. Did I hear that correctly?
Oh, no, he's having surgery on the ACL, obviously, to repair that.
They're saying that they didn't do it last year.
Yeah, well, last year it was a slightly different incident. We thought it was an ACL. It was slightly different. I believe the original opinion was to get surgery.
Yep.
So it would have been totally fixed now. They got a second opinion, strapped up. It healed, missed about 8 weeks.
So what are they saying that actually happened last year? There was a partial strain or tear to the ACL. Is that the mail?
He stretched it, I believe is the terminology. So
it was a very non-ACL mechanic last year, though. Like jarring your knee and hyperextending it like that's not typically how they do it. Yep. How they typically do it is exactly what we saw in the forward pocket on Friday night.
Would there be, because I know, but Darcy's dad, Luke Darcy, had... Did he do both knees?
He's
one year after the other? Or was it the same knee?
I remember, different knees, I think, but it happened at Geelong. I remember it clearly. Similar to Sam, he ran off the ground.
Yeah.
And I wonder if Sam was thinking that, what would Dad want me to do? He got up and ran off.
Man, it gave me
great.
hope when I saw him running. I go, here we go.
But unfortunately, it doesn't give a lot of hope. And it was the same as Luke Darcy. But you hope that he comes back. He will come back, obviously. He should come back stronger in the upper body. But just the way his body shape is and the way he moves, at times you've got your heart in your mouth all the time.
Did you see, if you really look at the footage, because they're replaying it on, the 360 and all the news shows a fair bit, look at Oscar Baker, because he personifies us. You look at his face when he sees Darcy go down, he's like, no, just like the way we all were.
And I think someone said to me, and I think this is a common misconception, they said, maybe this will give Darcy a good opportunity to put some size on and some strength. And I'm like... The problem with ACLs is it's a function of limb length as much as anything. It's not really about you can just magically get stronger. Yes, you can get stronger in your legs, and one of the big parts of rehabilitation to an ACL is spending a lot of time getting strong in the gym. Don't get me wrong. But Darcy's, to your point, he's a massive human, and he's putting his body in unnatural positions for a guy of his size. That's one of his amazing traits as a footballer. And so whether he's magically going to get strong and then he'll be injury proof. You just hope that's
you hope so, but his positive is his X factor off the ground, the way he can pick it up. He probably wasn't moving as well this year anyway.
No, agreed. I mean, really, his start to the year compared to what we saw from him last year it's probably 50% of what we saw last year at this stage.
So this is my theory. Since he's genetically predisposed to ACLs. Because what they do when they fix the ACL, I remember Clay Smith telling us about this, is they genuinely, there is a tendon behind your kneecap, that's your ACL, and by the time Clay Smith was doing his 4th one, they were grabbing part of his glute, out of his, his butt cheek, his butt muscle, and put it in there. So, me and Steve-O's ACLs are about, 3 centimetres across, whereas Clay Smith's is about 15 centimetres across. Could we just do Darcy's other knee while we're doing this one, considering he's out for a year anyway? We make them both industrial strength titanium, and therefore he's good for the rest of his career. Has anyone pitched that idea?
Yeah. Well, the issue, Clay would have ended up, to your point, he might have had a glute tendon done by the end, but they start with hamstrings.
Well, yeah, but let's just jump ahead here.
And I'm not sure, it comes with, there is some unintended consequences to making one thing too strong, because then you start ripping out the graft where that actually gets stuck on. That's happened before as well, whether the ACL gets basically sliced in certain moments, so the kneecap actually crushes it and snaps it that way. Or the Lars ones, the synthetic ones, if you recall, the issue wasn't actually with the synthetic tendon. The issue was that it was so strong that it used to rip out the joint, like where it was attached to. And then they have the same problem.
All right, so we replace his whole body with arse cheeks.
Yeah. We make him metal, basically.
Yeah, like RoboCop or the $6 million man. Or, we can rebuild him.
Yes. Yeah. So we're going to have to do something different, though. This week, so I've got a formula. I'm moving Bailey Dale out of the back line, who's a natural forward. I've seen him lead up at the ball, kick 5 goals at a time, started as a forward, so I'm putting him out of the goal square, Boydie, because I just think he's lost at the moment, down back, out of confidence, putting Fraser back to try and get some run and carry. The only downside of that is we're even more inexperienced if we take Dale out of the back 6.
Yeah, I don't think Bailey's, regardless of his experience and his incredible form, I'm not sure he's going to save anyone down there. He's not that sort of player. He's actually someone who flourishes when there's good leadership around him rather than being the person, I think. And that's more of a function of, I would say the same thing about JJ. I'd say the same thing about a lot of these halfbacks. They can't really dictate the ball in the way that they want, because they need the ball to actually be defended first, slowed down, and then they get to use their speed and their running ability to actually work the ball up the ground. I don't know if Bailey forward's going to save us. I think my concern back there, to be blunt, without him, is he's the only one I saw on Friday night who can kick the ball. Because we had a heap of problems with that.
Oh, my God.
Our ball movement in the back half was absolutely horrendous.
What about Rory Lobb? He gets a 50 and says, no, I'll just take 25, actually. I won't take the 50, and then I'll turn it over.
Yeah. Well, there was a time there, I think it must have been in the second quarter, where there was probably 5 or 6 of those in a row. And it was almost unwatchable, these 20-metre kicks, 15-metre kicks, leaning back, not sure where you're going, bloke who's receiving the ball's not moving anyway, and you just go, I'd rather you just bomb the ball all afternoon, and at least let's make it a shit fight down these narrow wings that we have at Skilled Stadium.
But the narrow wings make it difficult to find space, obviously, to get through.
Well, but the strength of Geelong has always been the fact that they never, they always use the centre of the ground so effectively down at Kardinia Park, right? And one of the things that happens, let's say, at the bigger grounds like the MCG, is that you get lost on the wings. And guys who are fit and can run, they always run around and stuff around and get all these extra touches on the wing. And really what you want to do is keep the ball within the sort of part of the corridor that you can attack from. The best part about being a forward at Kardinia Park is there's no wings to get lost on. So the ball just comes to you, and it has to go through the middle of the ground at some stage. And I think we just got beaten up so often because it's only one kick, one and a bit kick from the middle of the ground to the goal square there. And Geelong just did it over and over and over again.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm just getting my
I actually don't know how to fix it right now, genuinely.
Come on. That's what we get you on for.
My issue is we don't have someone to replace Tim. And our midfield is underdone at the moment, right? So Libber out again. Bont, let's hope, and I have full faith that Bont might come out and have 27 and kick 3 this week, genuinely. But he can't just do it alone.
Yeah, and Richards looks sore. He wasn't kicking the same. Yep. Would that be a jab or something, a bit of numbness?
If it's an ankle, and he's sore, he'd get a jab for sure, yeah.
But that affects your kicking, doesn't it? Because you lose.
Depends where in the ankle it is. It depends which ankle it is, because he's his left ankle, is it? His kicking foot?
I'm not sure, but I can report like an exclusive to Danny Boyd that I had a one-on-one with Ed Richards on Sunday night when I can report that
in confidence
that he did attend a comedy show at the final night of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival where he saw some a very, very funny, handsome, bald comedian and reportedly laughed so much. And I think because laughter releases endorphins, so he will be healed up from that.
Was he limping?
He wasn't actually. No, he looked absolutely fine. And I said to him,
Ankles are pretty resilient.
He came up to me after the gig and he was like, and he went on about how hilarious I was for about 20 minutes.
And how everyone should buy tickets to your next show,
the festival's finished. So recording a special soon. But I did say to him, my first question was, how's the knee? Because, the knee was affected first. And he went, well, the ankle's fine. And so
it wasn't a knee at all.
I don't know if that was deflecting the question, but he did say fine. And he looked.
Look, he had 33 and had 13 tackles on the weekend, so I can't really complain about his output.
Yeah.
I think everyone's confidence was down, obviously. And if you look at what they had available to kick to, and this is like the flow on that happens when you're getting beaten, is the forwards get out of position because they don't want to, they want to get up the ground, they want to stay involved, they want to put pressure on and show that they're still engaged in the game. Then the midfielders roll back, and everyone just rolls back towards the back half of the ground, and you just don't get the same level of effectiveness as you'd hope.
We did do well in the VFL. We did defeat the Cats there. Treloar got 41 possessions.
He has to come in, right?
He's got to come in.
It sounded like I don't know this for a fact, but I think he had 39 at three-quarter time, so I don't know if they put a fork in him. Yeah.
So he'll come in. They've been very conservative with him because as soon as he goes to the next level, something goes wrong. So fingers crossed for him.
Both.
What's going on with his haircut at the moment?
That's a real concern. I would have thought. I thought.
Do we think this is this is like to try and make his body pretend like it's younger and he's not going to have calf injuries?
Yeah, it's the 80s. He's becoming a child again.
Yeah, that's a concern. What about Will Lewis? What do you make of him, Boydie? Because I sort of look at him and think, he's a VFL type, so hopefully he can just play a role. And lucky he's on the list.
Yeah.
He still looks a step behind at AFL level.
Yeah, I think so. I think we probably had a few boys who were a little step behind, I thought, on Friday. But, I mean, like, on a positive note, if you look at, like, I thought Riley was quite good, West. He's one of the few players that you could rely on to win their own footy consistently. Sanders looked okay. And I think this is the point, is that if it's the flow on for me that really frustrates me, is that it seems like from Tim through the midfield and then exposing the back line, the other parts of the ground don't work very well either, which means that our younger midfielders who've been showing all of this excitement in the early parts of this year and at the end of last year, they're just not effective and they just don't seem to get the amount of ball that they need to show what their actual talent is with the footy in particular.
We could also bring in Buslinger and Caulfield, who both got 25 disposals at 88% efficiency.
Have they got any mail on Lobb and O'Donnell? What the
I think Lobb will play. It wasn't too bad. So they did a scan and nothing there. Maybe he just wanted to get off.
My joke on Friday was both of the backmen have just rubbed the ground a bit hard to go. So, I don't want to be out there anymore.
So he got out of here. Ryan Gardner's the interesting one. He'd probably come in. He's kind of an old-fashioned defender. At least he'll lock down as long as he doesn't have to kick the ball.
Yeah. Or get left by himself, right? Because none of our defenders are good enough, one-on-one to again, it's very rare to have defenders who are this good to just one-on-one be able to deal with the best forwards in the game.
So he's probably going to have to play on Curnow. Yeah. If he comes in, Gardner will probably play because he's the biggest body. You don't want Buku on
Have we
Curnow.
had issues with Curnow in the past? I can't really recall.
Yeah, he's sort of got hold of us at Carlton a few times.
He loves Marvel too.
He does. So fingers crossed that we can manage that. But the other interesting thing, just to go to Sydney, Joel Hamling.
I know.
He's playing. What's he going to do in the game? Is he going to come for a beer as well?
I hope so. Anna said to me, she goes, there are many players still playing footy at the moment. I said, there's probably, 5 or 6?
Yeah.
Caleb Daniels still playing, Josh Dunkley,
Stringer.
Jack McRae, Stringer, JJ obviously finished last year, Libber and Bont. And then I was like, is anyone playing for Sydney? I'm like, nah. Oh, Joel. Joel's been going for the last.
He's one of the best stories in footy, Joel Hamling. Would you have thought, looking back, that he'd still be playing?
Well, in all honesty, he's sort of, what has he played since then? 10 years. He's probably played 4 of them.
Yeah, that's
he had really bad ankle issues in Freo and then worked his way up to being essentially the vice captain, if I'm not mistaken, which was like crazy surprise to me, again, knowing him when he was 20. And then all of a sudden he's been at Sydney, snap your fingers for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And you go, he has sort of not played that much, but he's still hanging around.
You talk about missing years. Someone sent me a stat of like Darcy's last few years because he keeps getting a big injury every single year. It's something like he's played 50 games, but he's missed over 100.
Yeah, I don't think that can mathematically be correct. But 50 of 100 maybe.
50 of 100, that might be it.
That sounds more like it.
Yeah, I think you're a bit off the mark there.
What's that, 5 years in?
State schools are great schools.
4 or 5 in. I reckon he's probably missed 30 games, 40.
We missed the whole
Took him a while
season.
to get going. Yeah.
Basically, and he played,
Yeah.
5 or 6 games
Yeah.
year 2.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
missed 10 last year, but
Yeah.
so played 12. He wouldn't. Is he played 50 games?
Yeah, he
Okay,
just
he's
passed 50
played
the
50
other week.
games and missed 64.
Right.
So
Found it.
this must be his
Okay.
5th year.
Yeah.
6th year.
So, yeah.
Time's getting away for Darce, but he'll be back. Obviously, the advantage is of doing an ACL. As strange as it sounds, this is the best time to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to
You've
do it in
got
8
round
weeks.
6. You can come back probably for round 1 if everything goes well next year.
You play match sim post Christmas, basically from here.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's an advantage. You don't want to do it in round 14.
Nah, you
And
miss
also,
it.
there was talk on AFL Daily that he's done it around the same time that Max Gawn did his ACL. So, you can come back and be All-Australian captain.
Your Gorn's had 2 ACLs,
There you go.
so pretty
Well,
amazing.
this is why
what
we
he's
do
done.
both knees now.
Yeah.
This is why I'm
Yeah.
locking in on this.
There's no perfect rhyme or reason, but in a way, it feels like it's just a feeling that you're less likely probably to do it as a ruckman than a forward.
Yeah.
Because in forward, you've got more velocity, more jumping, and really that's sort of when all this stuff happens.
And it was a bad pass too from Cooper Hines. We're not blaming Cooper. What? If he'd hit a target,
He was about to hit a target.
No, the ball
No, he
floated.
kicked
It
it on the
wasn't
inside.
great. No, it wasn't.
It was this
Yeah.
was the issue. It was like he's leading like this, and the ball gets kicked there.
Yeah.
And he changes direction.
It wasn't a great pass, and that's a fact.
I'm
Well,
not
look,
blaming the pass.
But also, if you
Well,
do it like that,
If he hit him on the chest, it wouldn't have happened.
potentially. But
He wouldn't have had to change direction.
if you do it like that, you're going to do it. It'd be my opinion.
It's coming,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. It always,
It's too innocuous.
He always does look like when you see a baby giraffe just born and they can walk, but it's very gangly and uncertain.
That's
Darcy's
why when
always
he
had a bit
sold
of that.
candy 3 times in a row early in the day, and you go, why is anyone
Yeah.
falling for this?
But that was good.
Yeah, but why do they fall for it?
I know.
He's 6'9",
I
mate.
know.
Just let him, buddy.
It was good, but
Just follow his hips,
Yeah.
boys.
well, we've done the pre-production meeting. Should we? Obviously, it's a huge week. Reunion.
It is, absolutely.
I mean,
Yeah,
and the supporters would love an insight into
So
how's
what-
it going to work.
Yeah, what are
Tom?
you invited to? What are you?
That's a great question. I think, from my understanding of the event, so Thursday night we play against the Swans. I think this is the funniest part of this whole experience. We go, and the messaging coming out of the club for some time is, we don't want to take too much attention away from this season. We don't want to make a massive deal out of it. And then they go and book it against Sydney.
Well, yeah, I do not understand
It's
this
crazy.
at all. The team that's still filthy about the free kick count. This team that's still saying we were
And they
robbed.
lost 3 grannies or 2 grannies after this one.
And we are,
Yeah.
and we are playing right. It's like Dean Cox has got the easiest team talk of all time.
But when else would you do it?
Mate, when we're guaranteed a win.
No, I like it against
No.
Sydney. I do. I don't think it's going to help us win on the day, but it's an interesting. My point is more like, hey, if you were really serious about not making too big of a deal out of it and staying focused, why would you put it against the team that we beat?
Mate, can
Because
you-
it just makes the storyline so much easier.
All
to
Dean
see.
Cox has got to do is just show footage of Swans being robbed in 2016. Joel Hamling will have to stay tactfully quiet during that team meeting.
Joel will
Yeah.
definitely have to not explain why he pushed Buddy and Buddy's ankle rolled at the start of the game.
But I can see it now in the coverage. Channel 7, they'll be all over you guys.
Yeah.
Up in the box. It'll be so everybody's
Oh, yeah.
in a big corporate box. You can see the shots.
I
the
don't know if we're in a
cutaways.
corporate box or a room. I don't know. I think there's going to be quite a few people.
There'll be
there, so it won't
cameras.
a
So,
Boydie, you need to be front and centre with a
No.
Danny Boyd t-shirt on.
so who taking away the guys who are currently playing? Who's going to be best on ground as far as hitting the bar? And
Well, I think firstly, it is, from what I understand, it's everyone who played a game in that year, which I think is
That's
a really
good.
nice way to do it.
So Will Minson gets invited.
Yeah, Will
Thank
Minson
heavens.
also- He played in the last game of the year,
Yeah,
except for the final.
and against the Swans, where
Yeah.
we beat them. With
True,
JJ
up there, that's right.
Kicking the winner.
So, it'll be a really interesting. Partners obviously will be there as well, and a lot of the support staff. I've already spoken to a couple of the people who aren't still with the club, who are physios and trainers
That's
and all.
good.
So I think it'll be a really good feel. And I've spoken to a couple of teammates who are coming, and I think there'll be a lot of short, catch-up conversations, a lot of repeating it. Oh, what are you doing these days? I'm like,
yeah.
I've had a second kid. I've told 75 people, but maybe we should just all do announcements of updates
I think so.
across the screen so we can just talk about,
Get a business card with dot points.
Yeah, yeah.
2
Here you
kids, do a podcast.
Yeah. So your good mate Mitch Wallace will be there, obviously.
He'll be there, yep.
So who's your BOG, obviously?
Oh, I think it'll be difficult to go past Shane Biggs and Clay Smith. If I had
Friend
to
of the
guess.
show.
I did an event with those boys out at Sunshine or something earlier in the year, and They're still the same larrikins that I remember,
Brilliant.
so that's good. But I think it'll be a great night. And look, the last experience I had as close to this example as possible is the 100-year reunion, and we obviously got stitched up in the last 2 minutes.
Oh, yes.
So that was an amazing night for the club until it wasn't. But all in all, if you look at the game, it was 97% of success. So hopefully we get some version of that,
Yeah,
though
and
I'm not holding my breath necessarily.
So it was a Zero Hanger exclusive yesterday. Jake Stringer's coming back. How will he be greeted, the package?
It's a good question. I think, to be honest, and I was saying this off air, one of the things that I've learned over the last little while is like a lot of these Giants players that I knew when I was 18 and maybe didn't get along with that well, I've since run into them in recent times through a couple of weddings and the like, and we're all just kids, right? You know, life has grown up and changed, and everything's very different now than what it was 10 years ago. So for me, I think everyone's probably just going to be eager to see not only Jake, but everyone, right? These are all people I haven't seen really in any meaningful way for at least 5 or 6 years for the most part, and in some cases up to a decade. So it's going to be pretty good.
Is there any, surely, everyone's a grown up, even though you say you were just kids. There was no one really of the group who was an outcast.
No,
hated.
God, no.
Yeah,
but it's more, I think, like, to be honest, it's the obsession with whether people get along with each other is more of a media and outside.
That's why I'm asking about you and Jake. I mean,
all
you
of
didn't
the
answer
rumours
it.
that weren't true.
Well, they weren't true.
No, it's the
Okay.
craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. It's like, it's also not something that could possibly happen at a footy club without actually getting out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it would be like the craziest thing.
That was
that's
the
ever-
locker room story.
Yes, the locker room story.
Apparently, for those who haven't heard, apparently left a present for Boydie in his locker
apparently.
room, which
you got to understand. So there's only 2 locker rooms whilst I was at the club, right? The first one was essentially like a really close quarters. You're sitting opposite people within a metre, right?
Yeah.
No place to hide. The other one was the shape of essentially a big diamond or a kite shaped, fully open with lockers around the outside of the room. So if he was going in there to do that, he'd want to be doing that at about 4 o'clock in the morning. Is the point.
From all reports, he was awake at that time. So
But no, it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think broadly speaking, it'll be a non-event in terms of the personalities. It'll be more of a celebration.
That'd be great because obviously Ruffy's coming back as well.
Yep.
But when you look at it, a lot of guys have left and at times not on the greatest terms.
No, there's definitely a lot of those players, and I'd be quite open about that.
Yeah, in the Bevo era, a lot of sort of left on.
Yeah, less than
sort of
favourable
half
terms.
pushed out the
And
door.
I think, for instance, another one that's obviously been a different club, Zane Cordy came back to a recruit stint early in the year. That was the first time he'd been back to the club in a long time.
but we've had Zane on the show.
Yeah,
it's
not
don't think
animosity.
Ripper-
It's more
No.
like what happens with footy clubs is people always ask me, they go, are you still involved? I'm like, no.
Yeah.
They cut the cord as quickly and as sharply
Yeah.
as possible. And they try and transition you to, you're not a part of this anymore, mate. Don't hang around. And then you kind of, if you've had a career that's worth note or whatever, they invite you back slowly but surely through
And
the past ways in there.
Josh Dunkley obviously will be back as well.
Is he coming?
Yes, he's coming. That's another exclusive. So it's
right.
great to see some of these current players.
I had no idea Josh would be coming. So look, you're breaking it to me as well. Not that I would know. I'm not looking at the RSVP list, to be honest.
And can we see Pico because he hasn't
think
been
so.
back for a long time.
Well, my understanding is Pico will be there, so far as I know. That's what I've been told.
What about Peter Gordon, Susan Alberti? Any of
Not
these?
sure.
Okay.
Be surprised.
Wonder if Peter's going to do a speech. He's done some long ones. I remember he should do a 10-year replication of what he
Wow.
did at the dinner.
My thing that I've always said to people is the best part of that post-match function with Peter's speech, because me and my dad sat up at the back of the room by ourselves with no one bothering us drinking at the bar, and
Yeah.
we just got 50 minutes to ourselves. And apparently it was a great speech. I didn't listen to much of it, to be honest, but
It was good. They served dinner at that time, and it was good to have something in the stomach apart
Yeah.
from mid-strength beer.
that's right.
Yeah.
at that.
Later on, I was dancing with Bont's mum, I remember. So it was a great night.
Wow.
Yeah. So I mean, what do you what is the, for both of you, what's the best memory from that period of time? I think we touched on this maybe at some stage when we did a previous episode, but the reunion is coming up. It's 10 years or just under. What is the thing that sort of pops out in your mind as dog supporters, obviously, for a lifetime?
I'll start with the prelim, to be honest. That was probably topped. I know this sounds weird, but being at that prelim, and this is 10 years on, really topped it for me because I'd been to 7 losing prelims as a supporter, 7, and to finally get that far, I thought we're home here. So I was probably more emotional as a supporter at the prelim than the grand final.
Yeah.
I would say the third quarter against Hawthorn is still just pure emotion, pure lizard brain emotion of, because we were losing in the second quarter. And just for Hawthorn, we were looking like they
we
were
weren't just losing. We were losing because we were missing our opportunities.
Yes, we were dominating, but then they would score very easily. And I was just so sick of Hawthorn back then. And for it to be us to stop that was just such relief. And I do remember after the game, me and my mate Shane were walking out of the stadium just absolutely up and about, and a few people are just going, what a win. And then Shane starts saying to people, see you back here in 2 weeks. And the look of everyone looked confused of just like, what do you mean? Oh, that's right. We could make a grand final. It had gone out of our minds because it was just about winning that. Yeah. However, on a personal level, the greatest gig of my life, hosting the Whitten Oval, presenting everyone. I felt like Kim Jong-un just coming out going, hey, we won the grand final. Wow.
Yeah. I would say that my highlight is that Sunday. It was remarkable. And I think, one of the things about footy, unfortunately, is that with all of the attention that comes, most of the time, a large portion of it's not that positive. That day, it was all the attention, all of the positivity, kings of the world. And I think probably the first point in what's now been a long experience of feeling the gratitude from Bulldog supporters, we sort of probably didn't get exposed to that too much throughout my time as a new player.
Yeah.
But that day was like a representation, I think, of how much suffering, to Steve-O's point, has actually occurred, and the fact that we'd finally got there, and everyone was surprised and just thankful, I think.
Yeah, I just had a feeling that the Dogs would win that grand final. There's just something, once it happened at GWS, and that GWS game I'm still obsessed with. Whenever I put it on the TV, it just gives me some spine tingling.
It seems...
It's something about the atmosphere that night.
Yeah, it was like a perfect, on-field and off-field story, wasn't it? It was the focus groups team, one of the great banners, and the animosity from Dave Matthews and Leon Cameron to Gil McLachlan after the game about the crowd and how it was all Bulldogs and the booing they came out to and the heat, it was 30 degrees. It felt like when we ran out, and then all of a sudden it cooled off and it was dark and the game changed.
Yeah, and you had a big role, obviously, Ruffy. The ball was kicked into his face with
or a
eye
finger
or a finger. Yeah. So suddenly you were thrust into the ruck.
No, it was a ball. It was a ball into his face.
But was that the making of you the next week, do you think? The fact you went into the ruck and had an impact?
I don't know. It was weird. I mean, I didn't kick any goals in the first 3 finals, but I certainly felt like I was having like a significant impact, particularly around the footy, and it was like probably one of the few times in my career, I think, where my role was just really simple. And it was just like, this is all you have to do. You have to compete as a forward. And if you hit the scoreboard, great. But we've got other goal kickers as well. But we really need you to compete in the ruck because you give us something around the ball that we can't get anywhere else, which is some energy and the ability to win the footy yourself and help your midfielders out. And that was really quite simple for a large portion of 2016, but particularly through the finals, which I think, again, to the strength of Bevo at the time and the coaching group, it was like, simplify everything, right? This is what good looks like. We watched highlight package after highlight package preparing for each of these games to just say, guys, you're good enough. Like, just replicate what we've already done to the best of your ability. Listen to the structure, the game plan, and the identity that we had as a team, which no one else had, and you'll be fine. And I think that's why we had so much confidence.
Do you still think about that last shot on goal that's drifted?
Most nights.
If you'd kicked that... It drifted away. If you'd kicked that, you were definitely Norm Smith medalist. In fact, I still think you should have been. It was either yourself or Pico, I thought, was the vying for it. If that ball hadn't have sort of floated across, I think that's a Norm.
It would have helped, yeah.
If you'd won the Norm Smith, and I guess actually the chronology of the medals being handed out wouldn't have worked, but it would have been really funny if you'd got the Norm Smith and it said, I'd like to call Josh Kennedy up to the podium.
It's also funny that I think about, I'm like, presumably someone went up to JJ and said, here's what to say. Because I'm like, I would never have thanked all the sponsors.
Oh, really?
Not in a million years.
Really?
I mean, I know you're supposed to, but...
That's not very JJ to be prepared like that either, is it?
No, but JJ to be commercial, I'd say, is like he's up to date with all of the sponsors, if you ask me, especially if they're fancy clothing attire. But yeah, I mean, I can't imagine having said that. I'm sure if I was told to, I probably would have, but it doesn't seem like the moment to me. You want to go and say...
What would you have said? Yeah, go on. Who are you thinking?
Well, I've spoken publicly 500 times since, so I've got a bit of practice since then. But I think probably to the fans, the teammates, and the coaching group is kind of
nothing special.
Nah, the people who matter.
Were you standing there thinking, this could be me? That I think I could be?
I wasn't thinking that until Jordan Roughhead came up to me and said that I was going to win it. Basically, he's like, "Mate, you're going to win." I'm like, "I forgot this even happened." You know, because it's not. People will say, oh, it's a cliche to say I wasn't thinking about Norm Smith. We just wanted to win, but you really don't. Well, I didn't, at least. And I'd never won best on ground in anything at the AFL level. So, no, I wasn't thinking about it until Ruffy came up.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about who was best on because, when just before, if people, who do you reckon Norm Smith? And I'm like, I have no idea. I just went, oh no, Bont. He seems to win everything.
Yeah, I think the interesting story with our grand final is, if you think about the three players, let's say, that people talk about from our side and say Josh Kennedy from the other. So JJ, Pico and me, and then Josh Kennedy. And you think about all those players and there was like an impact to all four of them in a way. JJ, you can argue, obviously had his moments kicking to the opposition, basically. But there was no doubt that his drive out of halfback, there was all impact and it was all noticeable. And then I sit back and I think about last year and I was at the game. And I couldn't tell you who was going to win it at all because it didn't feel like there was a lot of impact from any of the players on the ground in many ways. And then obviously they pick out Ashcroft and it's great. He's he's second or something. And I'm like, but it wasn't just glaring at you like it was, I think, in earlier games. And if you think back, I think, again, to 10 years before ours in the 05 and 6, and you think about the players who won it, it's like impact on the game, noticeable impact. And I don't know if that's just a sign of where the game's going or what, but it's different.
Well, I had Harris Andrews last year, and he's a stopper.
Yeah.
So that's the way the game's going.
I had Lockie Neal, even though he only played a quarter and a half.
Right.
He just came on.
How many beers did you have?
Oh,
no?
17,000.
I don't know. I didn't see Lockie Neal.
I got on the Seltzers that day, so it was warm. So
I was
out.
around here somewhere.
Enjoy
actually.
responsibly.
Right.
It's a lot of alcohol talk in this week's pod.
Yeah, well, probably not a bad segue.
It's
to the big conversation of the...
I'm actually happy that you're keen to talk about this, Boydie. I know sometimes you are loath to comment on other people's...
Yeah, well, I mean, feel free to ask, and I think my perspective on these things is pretty straightforward. And
so we're talking about Elijah Hollands at Carlton, clearly having some sort of episode on the field. Like some people were saying he's on drugs, some people saying no, he's having an episode of psychosis. I fully admit I am not experienced enough with either of those to give it anything more than a purely speculative guess. However, I will say that one of our active listeners, Joey, friend of the show, he said he once rocked up to work having a psychotic episode and was sent home after 20 minutes. And he said, and I asked him, what's it feel like to have a psychotic episode? And he said, it's like being possessed. You're trying to communicate things to people and
out of body,
and they don't understand what's going on. And he said he doesn't smoke, but he started chain smoking.
I think without sharing things that are too close to home, I know what those things are like. I've seen, not personally, I've seen it firsthand. And at the end of the day, my perspective on this is that it doesn't really matter what it was at this moment in time. As in, the clubs will do their due diligence, the media are going to ask their questions, the AFL and the AFLPA are going to get involved to find out what's going on. But in regards to the response, this is what Elijah will be going through at the moment from a practical point of view. And that is the fact that he's not going to be able to go anywhere, talk to anyone, see anyone, do any of the things that will make him feel better from whatever's happened at all with this focus on him at the moment. Of course. And he will feel like, and his family will feel like, and his friends and the footy club and the players and everyone who's connected to this bloke, probably by 2 or 3 degrees of separation, are going to feel suffocated by this story. And when I sort of talk about this thing, I've been through probably some of the most attention-driven experiences in footy, whether it was around the contract or other points in my career, for good and bad, right? The burden that these people are carrying is quite drastic at the moment. And when people sit there and they'll say, it'll be a 48-hour news cycle and it'll be over, I mean, it's obviously longer than that already. We're now 5 days in or whatever it is. Even if we take the 48 hours as a theoretical number and it's actually a week, right? What typically happens in my experience with these things is that these moments define the rest of these people's lives. And what I mean by that is that forever in the future, whether it be in employment conversations with friends or footy clubs or whatever else, this is going to be a memory that everyone's going to have. They remember the peaks of your fame. They don't remember the volume of it, if that makes sense.
Yep.
And why I say all of that is to understand that if your child, an 18-year-old that you knew or 20-year-old or whatever his age is, or a friend or a family member was going through this, the first thing that you would want for them is for people to respect their privacy, to not mass propagate speculation in unfounded facts, which again, there's a lot of questions being asked and people, they veil propagation of suggestions through, we're just asking a question. I'm not potting anyone in the media per se. I'm not necessarily angry at anyone in particular, but I just think the responsibility that needs to be taken here, because this is not a once in a moment, this is going to last a lifetime for these people. And I just think it needs to be done properly and with some care and consideration, that we're talking about not just one human here. We're talking about his family in particular, his friends, which is now we're talking about 50 people. Footy club, we're at 100, and so on and so forth. This is going to permeate through his entire life for an extended period. I think just people need to be responsible with how they're talking.
Well, what's your take on Carlton's issue here? The fact that, look, he looked out of sorts and he could play the whole game.
Yeah, I think my feedback, and I said this yesterday in an interview, I think there's two sides to this. One, if anyone is thinking that Carlton don't have 7,500 touch points with their players throughout the preparation process for the game, they're crazy, right? Because the moment you walk in, you're with massage therapists or physios or doctors, you're with the medical staff in some way, shape or form. That's the first thing that you do when you get there. Then you're with the property team as they give you your jumpers and all of that stuff. You have touch points with them. Then you're on the field with your teammates doing light warm-ups. Then you're with the coaches, and then you're on the field. So there is literally going to have been 10 to 15 support staff and coaches having had conversations with every individual. And I think that there's a massive conversation that they have to have seen every player quite closely. Now, the flip side to that is, if you are a support staff, the last thing you're going to do to someone who might seem a bit weird, of which a lot of people seem a bit weird in the warm-up. I've talked about Matty Boyd on the show before. He's the most I use this loosely. He seemed insane to me when he used to prepare, right? He used to put a band on his knee and start kicking the ground and grunting and doing all this other stuff. And that's why he played 300 and whatever games, right? Because that's how he prepared. The last thing you're going to do as a support staff is go to someone who's preparing to play in front of 80,000 people or whatever the number is and call it $250,000 on television and go, geez, you seem a bit weird today, mate. And to throw them off their game, right? That's like a massive fear that people would have. And so the point and the question is, what did they see, and to what point do they need to have something in place to say this is outside the bounds of ordinary behaviour in preparation for a game of footy? And I can't sit here in Monday morning quarterback and say it would have been easy. I don't know. So I think it's hard to distinguish between those two sides of the coin from my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, how would the support, we've all met Tom Liberatore. He takes great delight in saying something you're not expecting. Yeah. If Libba, God forbid, had some sort of psychotic episode, how would you know?
Yeah.
Because he's so weird and we love him. He's fun.
Yeah. But and also the build up to a game is like a wave, right? So it starts and it builds momentum. And everyone is fixated on that first siren. And really, you don't get a chance to breathe. And the coaches, in a way, and I'm not making excuses for Carlton. I'm just saying, I can't even imagine it happening in my time in footy. So I can't put a concept to who should have done what and when. And I think it's interesting that they've come out and said, hey, and I think Graham Wright said this, he goes, we saw something early in the game. I'm like, that's an interesting confession or concession to make from my point of view. And I don't really know what happens from here, but it seems like that someo's going to get hung out to dry.
Did you ever play a game where you thought, hang on, I'm not quite right?
Oh, heaps, but not in that way.
No,
I remember playing, even the week, so I got concussed against North Melbourne as a slightly different example. And I had a week off and then I came back and played. And I wasn't... Actually, no, I don't even know if I took a week off back then. I don't think we had that in place. So I would have played the next week. I wasn't right. As soon as I got in the bright lights, I was foggy as all get out, which is pretty common when you have a knock. And so there was plenty of times when, from that point of view, plenty of times mentally I didn't feel up to it for sure. And I know players physically get very used to playing underdone or out of touch or injured. And there was probably a few playing for the Bulldogs on Friday night as well. So it'll be very interesting. And what's your take on it, Steve-o, with all that's going on?
Really sad because I put the father's hat on when I watched Elijah, and that was sort of my take on it. You start to look through the dad lens.
Yeah, same.
Right, so a lot of sympathy and sadness, really, more than disturbed by it. Carlton probably should have done more. I think I'd question, maybe this is being a bit harsh, Cripps maybe as captain, whether Max Gawn at Melbourne or Patrick Dangerfield or someone of that ilk would have allowed that to happen.
Yeah,
would a captain know what was going on?
No, I don't think so. I think
or
captain's probably... I would probably put it more at the hands of if someone was going to be capable, my thoughts would be more the doctors and the medicos, because they have a different lens on the players than the coaches. And you got to remember that coaches are kind of all locked into their own little worlds prior to the game, and they've got a very specific job to do to get the team ready. Vossi probably was doing media when he first got there. He's not around. He's doing a team meeting with 40 people in the room,
as well as all the board members and every Carlton fan.
Yeah, and
just the amount of pressure that all of Carlton is under right now.
And the other thing to remember, this wasn't against like Gold Coast.
Yeah.
This was against Collingwood on a Thursday night. Like, I'm not making excuses for anyone. I'm just saying, like, there's so much that goes into these games. And I suppose I question if we need to find out what happened first, if there's going to be any judgment passed. That would be my point. And the public, I'm not saying the public needs to find out, but whoever's doing the investigation needs to work it out.
And what about a line coach, though, whose job it is just to watch
more
his
likely
running
than the
pattern?
head coach?
Like, that's his job, just to watch what a certain playing group are doing, and he's in that line. But you'd think that they'd pick up on that one.
Yeah, more likely. That line coach would be more likely than the head coach, no doubt.
Any time where you've played with a teammate where you thought, gee, they're not quite right?
Not like that, no. And again, I tell you the other thing that's really hard in this thing is if you picked out 10 clips of Libba in certain games and put them all next to each other, you could build a story that things weren't quite right? Because he's eccentric, and like I remember when he was at the height of, say, 2016, to refer to reunion this week, people used to not be able to fight back against Libba because he was so weird. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And if I push someone, they go, I'll push him back. I know how this works. Like, I've got an exchange of aggression. Libba would just say something to you and look at you really strangely and be like, do I push him or do I like run away? Or,
yeah. I've got a kid in my under 12s now, and I genuinely love him because he's a bit like Libba. What his standard thing, he plays fullback and he's a great fullback, but he will get there and the full forward will come up and they'll shake hands, and apparently he looks them straight in the eye and he just says, I like doorknobs. And that's all he says.
Exactly. That's not too dissimilar to a Libba comment. So I've never seen anyone like that. No way. And again, I think that it's really hard to sift through what's perception here and what's reality. But I think fundamentally, and this is not about conceding responsibility that people have, whether that be on the player or the coaching staff, whoever. But at the moment, we don't know where that responsibility lies, and I think it's a mistake to, not just make assumptions, but be very, very adamant that is the actual issue without knowing what's going on.
So what do we do as people who aren't involved? Do we just
imagine it was your
up?
son
We
or your
just shut
daughter?
up?
I think it's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, okay. I respect that. I'm happy
and
to shut
by
up
the way,
about it.
look, and I think my thoughts would be criticism of the clubs is very different than criticism of the person. I think it's obvious in some ways that even with regards to some of the comments that have come out since, and like Carlton haven't nailed this in general, I would say, compared to what some other clubs might be who are really, really buttoned up on this stuff. And I think that it's very fine to also be sceptical of what the club says, because, we know that footy clubs in the league don't tend to share all of the truth at any one period of time. Yeah. But again, if you put yourself in the shoes of this is my son or family member, you're probably going to want people to wait.
Okay. Well, let's put a pin in it. Let's obey your wishes and say no more. To wrap up the free-to-air bit of the pod, we've got a very tough... I mean, as much as Thursday will be a celebration, it's looking grim. And then we've got Freo a week later.
No, I'm going in positive. I think I see it as an opportunity.
We'll just rewatch a few games from 10 years
No,
ago.
I reckon we're a chance. I reckon we're an outside chance to get things moving. It is at Marvel. We've been good at Marvel. Don't get beaten at Marvel too
Steve-o.
often.
Yes.
And Sydney, look, they're looking good, but they've had a favourable sort of fixture. Let's just wait and see.
Yeah, I like this. This is good. What was I going to say? You've thrown me off with your positivity. I was expecting, because normally I have to be the glass half full sort of go, oh, this is one thing. It's really one just annoying thing. This is the week where you'd hope I could do a reference to 2016 on the banner. Anzac round.
Yeah.
Have to pay tribute.
Right.
Any mail on our TBCs? We had a few people on the injury list that they hadn't designated a time. Tim was one, I think. Cody, maybe another.
I reckon Tim, my mail is won't play this week. It's getting closer. Probably play.
And what are they saying?
Freo?
Just Ginger?
Ginger. like
he saw.
It's an issue of pain management. So he could probably play this week.
Yeah.
It comes down to your fortitude and ability to play through pain. In the rucks, obviously, combative. My question to someone I was talking to at the club, well, why don't you just play him at full forward? Bring him in and make him a target.
Yeah, I don't know.
He's
It's
not gonna
interesting.
stay at full
Tim has always been a bit picky around feeling. I don't know if you recall. This has come up a lot, I'd say, over the last 4 or 5 years, where he wants to feel as close to 100% as he can.
Yes.
But if you really look at his history, he hasn't missed a lot of footy, really.
He's had a few concussions,
That's right.
which he's taken longer to come back from concussions.
correct, yeah.
I think he's a very deep thinker about these things. He's not going to put himself at risk in any way.
He's definitely thinks he's autonomous too, right?
So someone like a Libra would carry this injury probably, but different as a bigger guy in the ruck. So
I think, honestly, in the scheme of things, like my positive spin on it is, what are we at? 3 and 2 at the moment?
4 and 2.
4 and
4 and 2.
2.
So we're 4 and 2. We probably come out of the ledger over the next 2 weeks. Let's say, in all likelihood, at 4 and 4. We get Tim back. We get Libba back. Hopefully at that stage. We've also got a couple of boys who are a bit ginger. We get them, and maybe we start to actually go. Well, we actually had a terrible draw. We had 8 really tough weeks.
Well, after we play Freo, we've got to we play Port, and that should be, but again, away. We got to travel, and then we play the Demons, which you'd think that's easy, but it's Sunday, 3:15. They always win those.
Yeah. Well, they haven't been
Sunday
they lost
fun
to
day.
Essendon, but
That's true.
No,
Yeah.
they're not going to be easy. So the whole fixture's a cluster.
Yeah.
To be honest, we've just got to get through that. But you spoke about Waitman, still a TBC.
I'd say Waitman's a TBC in general, not just by date.
I think it's getting more positive. I think there was a time 8 weeks ago where perhaps it could have been curtains almost.
My thoughts are whether he gets back out there is not the point. My thoughts are that his real strength is that he has an amazing aerial game. That's actually his advantage, not everything else. He kicks goals, he can lead, whatever, that's all fine. His competitive advantage against others is he can mark overhead, and he's got to get off the ground to do that. I'd be worried.
He's not a crummer.
No, not in that sense.
We need his energy back, obviously. So I think he's probably 2 or 3 weeks away from playing VFL, but the club are very cautious on giving any timeline at all on Waitman. It's a sensitive one. Obviously, he's had the operation, infections. A lot of things went wrong. Deep down, I'm not sure whether he's overly thrilled with how things have gone. It's been a tough run. So he'd be frustrated.
I think so. I mean, frustration tends to come first. Who gets blamed comes second, I find. If you're sitting there on the sidelines not making any progress, you start blaming people for things potentially that's not 100%.
But that's been a blow, and obviously you lose Jamara, which is a blow for nothing.
Yeah.
Back at the peanuts, basically. So,
and he hasn't obviously hit the first team yet.
We kick 5, I think, again in the VFL, so he's not too far
It's
off.
interesting though. It sort of seems to bubble back and forth. Doesn't seem like there's any continuity up there to me.
Yeah, I think you put it perfectly, Steve-o. A lot of bad things have happened.
Yeah.
But freakish things. I mean, there's a lot of strange things through history, but the Dogs are 4 and 2. When you looked at the fixture after the first 8, it could have been 2 and 6.
Yeah, that's true. And a couple of kicks gone either way, and we could. The only game we've won very easily is the GWS one. We could have been 1 and 5.
Well, Essendon was a walk.
I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
That's how good it was.
We just stopped trying after half time.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, folks. We're going to slip behind the paywall to speak to our patrons. If you'd like to join, it's only $5 a month, and we get to raise our kids and all of the above. Boydie will be back in a few weeks' time. Steve and I'll be back next week to preview the Dockers game. But good luck, everyone. And think back to 2016 because, as much as it's a dark time right now, we have experienced the highs, and St Kilda fans and Freo fans would bite your hand off for that. So enjoy that. And once again, thank you, Boydie, for winning us a flag.
Thank you.
It's not that dark, mate. You could be a Richmond fan.
They won 3.
Gave my childhood to that roar of the red, white and blue sea, and the knowledge that you had two loves, the Bulldog boys and me. 20 years on, I feel that longing hanging in September air. But the reason I go every week is to pretend you're still there. And they will find the glory one day, and I will throw it at your feet. It's a long, long road they're running for you. The dogs of Footscray streets. It's a long, long road they're running for you, the dogs of Footscray streets.